Ever since we announced to the public that we were doing this record, a lot of people are taking things out of context and thinking that we're actually working on a country record. But no, it's not a country record. It's country songs that we made sound like Devildriver.
You know, people put that online and it was just like, well, hold on. In no moment should you be concerned, because this is probably one of the heaviest records this group's ever offered. You know, it's brutal as fuck, you know?
It's not a country record. It's pure metal, Devildriver metal. I mean, I think it's got some light moments in it, but it's also got some of the heaviest points of Devildriver's career, I think. It's, yeah, definitely, it's not, you know, your average country listener is probably not gonna, you know, that listens to country nowadays, the radio country nowadays, is not gonna be into this record, I would think.
Oh, 100%. Like you know, you take a song like Whiskey River by Willie Nelson, and it's, you know, Whiskey River, take my mind, right? But it's a black metal song on our record. And it features Randy from Lamb of God and myself. And Randy's actually on 2 songs, on Ghost Riders and on Whiskey River. And it's like, Whiskey River, take my mind. And him and I, in our highest registers that we've never even used in our own bands. So I think it was a matter of taking these songs and doing them the way that I heard them, and using those lyrics that were so like just visceral to me and putting them in a metal tune.
Well, originally I just agreed to do just one song, Whiskey River, because he'd sent me a list of songs that they were covering, and I saw Willie Nelson's song, and I saw Whiskey River, which is, you know, one of my favorite Willie Nelson songs. And I was like, can I do that? And he's like, yes. I'm like, awesome. But I had no idea of how it was going to sound. Like, he hadn't really sent me anything. So I was just like, they'll make it cool. And I figured maybe I get to, you know, use my singing chops a little bit. Then I get here and it sounds like, you know, Dark Throne or something. It's like super fast. And I'm like, okay, there goes that idea.
We did add some things that were, you know, country elements, such as like slide guitar and lap steel, but distorted in more of a metal way, I would say. And Neil and I enjoyed doing that so much that I think on the next Devildriver record, we're gonna actually implement some of that stuff into Devildriver originals, just because we had so much fun doing it on the Outlaw record. But as far as paying homage to the originals, yes and no. Throughout the record, there are some songs that sound very much like the originals, and there's quite a few that don't sound anything like the originals whatsoever. There's a couple songs on there where the content wasn't really there to make a good metal song out of it, so we had to kind of improvise and actually write some original riffs underneath, you know, the original idea of the song.
When I hear it, I'm like, I've never heard anything like this, you know? Neil does a lot of crazy, like a lot of his solos are like on this slide guitar, which is just like not a thing in metal. And he rips that shit.
The rough idea, came from Des, but I've been thinking about it for at least a decade. I've always thought that lap steel could really be a cool element to add to a metal record, and you know, not in the way that you necessarily have to sing about trucks or anything, but just have the music, you know, with the flavor of that. You know, I'd heard it a couple times before, but never in the way that we've done it here. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing to the record for me, is that I get to add those little flares of lap steel, things that I don't normally get to do, you know.
At times, I guess I tried to do what maybe metal would be like if it were more country, and kind of did more double time style approach, like more stuff like that rather than all groove. There's more moments of that than usual for me. Because that's kind of what it called for. But for the most part, I mean, it's, yeah, I can't reiterate more that it's just an onslaught of brutality. Like, my feet were definitely put to the test, just like the last record, and just certain songs I've probably played more double bass than I've ever done on any one song ever, you know what I'm saying? If you're into that kind of thing, you'll love this, you know. There's black metal moments that are, you're like, what? Country, black metal, they don't really go together, but you'll see, I mean.
After, you know, AWOL Nation's Sail, the cover we did of that one, which has become definitely one of the more popular Devildriver songs, a lot of it is done in the same vein as, you know, what we did with Sail. is a very non-metal song that it sounds like the original very much, but it's just our take on what, it's like, well, if Devildriver had written that song, what would it sound like?
For the most part, I tried to pick at least one or two prominent things about the original to keep, and besides that, kind of start with a blank slate. I'm always writing riffs, and I just think like, oh, this riff would kind of be cool if it had, the cadence of the vocal of, this George Jones song over it or something. And maybe not, even in the same time signature, but this riff somehow reminded me of something else. So then I'll take that, maybe I'll take the original melody, put that in a guitar line, throw it over there. I mean, it's a kind of a complex and abstract thought when you're just, you're basically writing your own riffs for this. I mean, I wrote my own riffs. It's not like I took the, the 1-4-5 country structure and just did that 11 times.
That's a different kind of sound, because it has a Devildriver sound. It's not like this sounds like country. Like there's this sound from country music, but the sound is different. Devildriver sound.
Yeah, I mean it's the last thing we want to do is put out a record that doesn't sound like us. And at times that might seem like a stretch coming from slow country ballads from the late 70s, but it seemed to work.
You're asking about how the typical country music fan is going to react. I don't think they're going to react because I don't think they're going to listen to it. I don't think this is an opportunity for us to educate country music fans about the virtues of metal at all. What I think it is an opportunity is for, some metalheads who might listen to this stuff and like, I really dig that tune. Knowing that it's a cover, they might go back and check out the original, I don't think people from the Grand Ole Opry are going to be calling me or Mr. Fafara or anybody else on the record anytime soon to come to Nashville to sing with Minnie Pearl, or anything. I think if we go to Nashville, we're going to have to take it by storm, which, could happen. I'd love to do a live show of the tunes we did.
I think, if you played it for any old country fan, I don't think they would know what it is at all. But that's not really the point of that. I think what I think is cool about this project is that I compare to how I grew up on all the bands I like. I used to read Metal Edge and Hit Parader and Circus, and I was reading all the 80s bands and all the hair metal bands I was in. I was reading what was Wasp, what did Wasp listen to? Why does Blackie Lawless look like he does? Why does this band look like that? And then I would read them go, well, we listened to Mott the Hoople, and then we listened to T-Rex, and we listened to The Sweet. And I'm like, who the fuck are these bands? So I went back and I searched out those bands, and it built the spectrum of rock and roll for me. Like, I know how music's been created. It was like I schooled myself by listening to my idols or my heroes and who their heroes were. So I'm hoping with a record like this, it can, the people can relate to the lyrics and some of the things like that, and they'll check out some of these older artists, and it'll open your mind, man. That's what I've always said. Listening to one type of music is just going to make you play one kind of music. You need to open your mind to everything, and it could be country to jazz to anything, just something to separate. He can't be the Incredible Hulk all the time. He's got to calm down sometimes.
I think they'd be jazzed, actually. I got family in Texas still, and they're just, one of my, my brothers, my twin brothers does folk, he does like Americana folk music, and then I have a brother-in-law, he's a country artist. He loves what I do, and he comes to my shows, and I think he'd get a blast out of it. It's not something he would listen to all the time, but if he heard some music that he recognizes, he'd give it a shot. So I think they'd be open to it.
Nah, man, I think that people hear something good and they recognize it as that first. Worrying about how you describe it exactly later, if something is a good idea, played well, everybody's heart and soul's in it, how can you go wrong?
I know a lot of country fans will relate to it because some of them are open-minded, and then again, you got other people out there that think any kind of music that's not this kind of music is bad music. So who knows? But since it's Devildriver and Dez, and they're, you know, within their sound that people are used to, I think it's gonna be, you know, a good thing for the band. I know they got to have fun with it. And for a fan, if someone's driving down the road and it came on the radio, some people might say, oh, okay, that's a Willie Nelson song, that's a Waylon Jennings song. But is it a Willie Nelson song? Or is it a Waylon song? Or did somebody else write that song that you thought was a Willie Nelson song or a Waylon Jennings song?
Well, I think it's going to depend on what country people you're talking about. You know, I mean, I have friends that are wide open to this kind of thinking. Jamie Johnson, you know, of course, Shooter Jennings, you know, it's, to me, it's the stock that I come from. It's the way of thinking. It's like, there are no rules to music as far as I see it. And so I'm from that school. So there's a lot of people that believe there are rules, and I'm not one of them. But so, you know, some people may feel differently about it, but no, to me, it makes perfect sense.
And then once I was out here, he's like, do you want to sing, you know, Ghost Riders with me and John Carter Cash? You know, I'm like, yeah, absolutely, you know, who wouldn't want to? And it was a lot of fun, and we did it in the room that we're in right now. And I sat there and sweated and screamed, and it took a few hours. It was a good time, you know.
Johnny Cash, obviously, didn't write Ghost Riders, but did the version of Ghost Riders that I think is the most well known. So we did Ghost Riders with Randy from Lamb of God, John Carter Cash, and Anna Cash at the Cash Cabin. And I was very fortunate to record there and be able to sign the mantle. Like the mantle that Johnny Cash built in his cabin. I signed it next to Chris Christopherson and some other cats. Is unbelievable for me, right?
Man, you know, it was fun. You know, I just gave him what I could. I started to try to say, okay, there's only one way to do this track, and that's a heavy. You got to have a heavy. I can't do a heavy. So, you know, I sang the choruses. I wound up, singing a couple of parts on the choruses, and then my wife, Anna, did some high parts, you know, here and there. It was exciting, you know, because we don't do a lot of that kind of music there in the cabin, but we have tracked metal, you know, at my studio, and a lot of like rock and roll, a lot of loud guitars anyway, but real metal not that much. And so it was a blessing to have it there, you know, and to be able to have the chance to be a part of something that was exciting, different, you know. Something that I don't typically go to, within my career.
Just meeting John Carter Cash was an incredible thing. We pulled up to the cabin, and John was out front already waiting for us, which was great, and had made us some food when we came in, and gave us a tour of the cabin, and told us some stuff that his dad had done in there, and taken us around to where Johnny had recorded. But I found it really interesting that a lot of these real country cats listen to metal. So a guy like Jamie Johnson, for instance, one of the seminal outlaw country artists nowadays that I love, he wears a Lamb of God shirt on stage. And the first story that John Carter Cash told us was about his father taking him to go see Ozzy.
I drugged my dad to an Ozzy Osbourne concert when I was in 1983 because I knew he could get me backstage because he knew Ozzy. so he was exposed to metal then, you know. There was a band back in the 80s called One Bad Pig, and they did a version of one of his songs. It was a metal, you know, thing. And then my mom, of course, wrote Ring of Fire, but Social Distortion had a great record of Ring of Fire. They were always wide open for that. And then, of course, my dad would go the other way, you know, cutting, you know, Rusty Cage and, you know, Hurt. I mean, you know, he wasn't afraid to go that direction. And so I'm sure he'd dig it. I don't know how much he'd probably listen to country gospel before he would to the metal, to tell the truth, but he'd be open-minded to it.
Tell me about his love for heavy metal, you know? When then I told him about my love for outlaw country, and it was a real just kind of meeting of the minds, and recording there was killer.
Yeah, I grew up with metal. Metal was, that was my love. I mean, I grew up, you know, listening to Motorhead and, you know, Black Sabbath and, you know, Iron Maiden. I mean, if there was a keyboard in the band, I was not interested, you know. I thought that Van Halen lost their minds when they did 1984. I mean, I was a metalhead, you know, when I was young. And so, you know, classic metal, as you would call it now, whatever, you know, I appreciated. But you know, as the years went by, I expanded my musical tastes. I began listening to a lot of other kinds of music, you know, rock music, classic rock music, you know, country, you know, everything from gospel to classical to opera. But I still continued to listen to metal. And I think metal became something else to me. It became a form of aggression. It became a way to get out my frustrations. You know, I could listen to it, and, you know. But I got into Lamb of God, man. I was listening to Tool. I was listening, you know, to that stuff. And you know, even in the 90s and the 2000s, I was still into metal. So it wasn't like something I just did when I was a kid, you know. It's like, it was still part of my life and has been for years and years.
Yeah, I mean, he went on about his love for music in general, and I was going on about my love for like Merle Haggard, and he was going on about his love for Ozzy and Motorhead, and it was just fantastic. It was a great overall day. And then to be there in a place that so much music had come out of, and so many great musicians had gone to the cabin to work. I mean, before he passed away, homeboy from Soundgarden was there, you know, recording, Chris Cornell. And so we got to see pictures of that and stuff, but a lot of people go into the cabin and work, and I was just very grateful that they let us in and we got to do it, and I got to sign the mantle. That was incredible in my life, because that's going to be there forever. I did it in black Sharpie so you could see it too. Well, I got into my parents' record collection when I was younger, and that's what got me into music. And they had everything from the Doors and Steppenwolf to a lot of outlaw country. And you know, and even stuff like Kenny Rogers, stuff like that laying around the house. But I love all genres. But I think my true like kind of love for it came when I started touring with Pantera. Them and on the Black Sabbath tour. I constantly was hearing those guys on the bus jamming outlaw country, you know, and if it wasn't Willie Nelson, it was Johnny Cash and bands like that. So I just fell in love with the lyrics as well. Like the lyrical content is so fucking real, you know. It's like when you say, if drinking don't kill me, her memory will. It's like, oh, Like, I wish I wrote that, right? And then whenever I would hear these songs on other people's buses or on my bus, I would think to myself, man, this stuff needs to be heavy. I would hear it heavy, like a song like Ghost Riders in the Sky. I would constantly hear it heavy, like Ghost Riders. I would hear it like that.
I grew up around country. I don't think I listened to anything besides country and then R&B from my mom. That's another record, I guess, down the line. I listened to that till I was probably 13 would be the first time that I got into rock or anything else. But yeah, it was more like Garth Brooks, George Strait, Dwight Yoakam type stuff. Mainly from my dad. And, being from the South, being from Texas and Oklahoma, it's pretty ubiquitous there, so.
To outlaw country music, I probably first heard that when I was a young child in Southampton County, Virginia. I mean, I grew up in the country for a good part of my childhood, literally on a farm, and a lot of people around there listened to that music. Not that I necessarily got along with those people after a while, but I heard the music a lot, I was always a weird punk rock kid out in the country, out in the farmlands.
I discovered my mother's mandolin, and so she started to teach me how to play it. And she liked to sing too, and so I heard her singing some country songs very early on in life, and it was there for me to hear. So I loved it. I have always loved country music. I have a country band called Range War. The titles such as "If They Ain't Got Cold Beer in Heaven, Who in the Hell Wanna Go?" Stuff like that there.
Was there a moment when just outlaw country just struck me as a kid? Not really, because the records were already lying around and I grew up listening to it, and I consider my granddad one of the outlaw legends or timeless guys. So since his records were around, and I'm talking when I was 4 to 6 years old, also had Charlie Daniels, Waylon, Willie, Johnny Paycheck, Merle Haggard, David Allan Coe, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Jerry Lee Lewis, all those guys. Was lucky enough to have that in the collection. So hearing those songs was already just kind of, I guess, used to it.
Outlaw country. I never heard the term really outlaw country. I just heard the term country music. I grew up in North Carolina. I lived there up until 8 years ago, and just country music was something that was always on the little wooden box radio in my parents' kitchen. Wake up in the morning before school, they had the radio on, you were hearing, it was all like the top 40 country, which is still nothing like the horrible, horrible country that's out there today. But still, it was kind of stuff that my parents liked. And when you're a kid, you don't want to like what your parents like. So I'm just like, this country's stupid, I don't like it.
Coming to appreciate country music more as an adult, I think definitely I can identify with the lyrics a lot more than I could as a child, because country music is a lot about raw hardship and heartbreak. There's a lot of darkness in that, and when you're, a 12-year-old kid, it's really hard to understand the heartache of someone singing about their wife leaving them or something. You're a 12-year-old kid. You're still trying to figure out, whether you want to go BMX or talk to the cute girl down the street.
As I got older and I had some friends, just being on tour, and when you're 6 months on tour away from home and you're on a bus and stuff, and you start listening to different music and things, and you start to hear these country songs that you heard as a kid that didn't make any sense to you. And then now as you're older and you're kind of living through stuff, and you've been through a divorce, and you've been through this, you really did lose your dog, you really did lose these kind of things, these cliche things, and you go, man, I can relate to this. And you can hear some of these artists, man, and they're pouring their hearts into it as much as any metal guy or anything. And that's true, honest country, whether you want to call it outlaw country or what. But then the outlaw term, the country term comes from, you know, the Hellraiser guys, which was Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and Hank Jr. and all those dudes. Willie Nelson. Those were like the G.G. Allens and the Nicky Sixes and the Lemmys of country. You know, those guys just they shook it up.
I'm from Texas, and I grew up with country music, and a lot of the country music that I happen to particularly like more than other country songs were like the more rebellious dudes. George Jones, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, Hank Williams. So it was, they were the original Outlaws, and so that's what I always grew up on.
I do remember going out on the road and seeing it officially my first time, and what all happened behind the scenes and with the crowds and how things were. I think my first picture being near Willie Nelson, I was maybe like 5, maybe 6. And then the first time I was ever on stage, I was 10. I was 10 in Atlanta, but that's when Junior was touring with Waylon, Leonard Skinner, and all kinds of others in that market.
Yes, I love country. Some country songs like Johnny Cash.
You know, I guess I didn't realize what was considered outlaw country and what wasn't. Other than like Johnny Cash, there's some obvious ones, but there's some on this record that were questionable. But we decided, hey, let's rip that. We can make that a cool cover. But yeah, you know, John Cash. For sure, obviously Hank III, Dwight Yoakam.
Not at all. I would say it started to grow on me just hanging out with Dez in the back of the bus, you know, probably early on in my, you know, I'd say early on when I joined Devildriver. He was listening to a lot of Hank III and Johnny Cash and a few other guys, and I openly admit I actually had kind of a hatred toward country music, but I think the stuff that I was exposed to was more of, I guess you would call, pop country. And but the more outlaw country I heard, I still to this day I don't have like a huge love for outlaw country music, but there definitely is a lot of stuff out there that I do like, and I appreciate the songwriting, and I do enjoy the way country music has, the way they tell stories is a little bit different than a lot of other genres.
I mean, to be honest, I think some of the early tours, touring with Devildriver in like the mid-2000s, I kind of got turned on to it through Dez. So listening to, you know, everybody from, you know, Johnny Cash to Waylon Jennings and beyond that. I mean, when I got asked to do Copperhead Road, I wasn't really familiar with Steve Earle, to be honest.
That's about all I really knew about outlaw country. It was kind of Mike and Dez kind of talked about it, and the rest of us kind of just, yeah, sure, let's rip it, you know. By no means did I realize, or any of us really realized, that this thing was going to come together and we were going to have all these guests on here, and it really came together, you know. And that's kind of what makes it a rad thing, you know.
And then one day we were off tour. We were like on an off date or something like that. We were at the mall, and we went into one of those places and did like one of those shots like we all dress up as cowboys, and we got a big photo of that made, and everyone had shotguns and stuff, and I just kept looking at that thing on the tour bus going, you know what, we should do a cover record, and we should do something no one's really done. We should cover outlaw country and just do it heavy as balls and get a lot of people that I've turned on, like you said, like Brock from 36, or like Hank III, who turned me on to some real deal, you know, like Wayne the Train Hancock and stuff like that. let's get some people and let's see if we can do this. And I hit Napalm, and funny thing, because I mean, they're from Austria, right? So they're not supposed to get it, but they got it. They were like, oh, okay, we get this. This could be really something great. And I just think metal needs a shaking up, really. So we wanted to do something different.
I hope we get to play some live. I mean, the MO has been normally touring. We just add, 2 or 3 from the newest record, and then add it to the legacy songs, as you could say, I guess. I don't see us doing the whole record. I would love to, but I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I would love to take that lap steel out on the road.
I'd like to. We're going to see what's really happening. I mean, I think this record is about giving fans something while we're off. We knew it was going to be 3 years before the next record. So we're like, let's give them something cool to listen to. But if we could take it out and we could have some of these guests, maybe do one night in New York, one night in LA, or one night in Nashville with these people, it'd be great. John Carter, when he went to sing with me, he's like, should I use my metal voice? And I was like, metal voice? Like, yeah, let me hear it. And I was like, that's incredible. I was like, now use your regular voice because we want your clean voice on this. But it's cool that he had that in his head. All artists have like different voices that they use. You want my clean voice, you want my country voice, you want my California voice or whatever. But yeah, I would love to take it out. We'll just see. It's not really going to be based on touring. It's basically based on giving somebody something fantastic, giving the fans something fantastic in the meantime while they're waiting on another record.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I think, I don't know how many people that aren't in the real metal world realize, how much it's athletic. You have to be an athlete. You have to be bright. You have to be dead on. You have to be spot on to be a real metal player. And I don't know. I can scatter myself all over the place. Yeah, I'd get up on stage and I'd give it all I had, but I couldn't hang on the road for long, man. It's hardcore.
Doing it live would be amazing, and I definitely see our bands touring again. We just got off the road supporting them a couple months ago, so absolutely, if they're gonna play it live, let's do it.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, Sail is, we never really expected Sail to. I don't even think we ever planned on playing that song live, and now if we don't play it, I think our fans get mad. And so that's worked its way into regular rotation in our set live, and I don't think we'll ever play all the songs off this record, but I would say there's definitely like 3 or 4 that I would really like to play live.
I'm excited to play those songs live. I do. I listen to them and they're great, and I'm excited to play those songs.
I would love to, just because they're some of the most off-the-wall, just weird things that, I don't usually get to do in songs, because we had this just, free range on these things.
I think it could be an awesome thing. It could be an ultimate melting of that. It's definitely possible. I think the hardest part is getting everyone in one place. If you get us in one place, yes, it would be an amazing thing. There's so many things that you could do with it, and I think it would be a spectacular thing. And it would just, like for me, there's not a lot of bands that have mixed the styles. Like I've went and seen Hank the Three. I've seen Shooter Jennings. That's 2 artists that are doing this, that really kind of have more. They have a country audience and they have a rock and roll audience. And when I go into their shows, I don't feel alienated. I'm looking just the way I do, but I'm not feeling alienated. I'll see a guy with a Misfits shirt. I'll see a guy with a Hank Williams Jr. shirt on, and everyone's cool. It kind of unites people, and whether they like the same kind of thing or not, it's just, so I'm hoping that could open sort of a door like that. I mean, nobody knows what the next kind of thing's going to be. It's like, I don't know. It's things are always changing, and I think this is a really cool idea, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And with the cast of people that's on it, I'm completely honored. I'm the underdog of it, I feel, but I'm glad that they let me be a part of it.
Oh, absolutely. If we were able to do a live show, particularly with all the people involved, all the guest vocalists, I'd be super pumped on it. You know, I don't think it would survive a tour, but a couple of shows would be a whole lot of fun. You know, you can't get like 13 different frontmen together and expect them to to pull a tour off, but we could do a hell of a show for sure. You know, I think it would be a lot of fun. And of course we'd have to do it in Nashville more than likely. You know, go down to Music Row, everybody all dressed in black, looking all just scuzzy, and then play some club later. We'd probably get Hank to come out. It'd be a good time.
It's a pretty hard thing to do just to get them on a record, and I know how hard it is on just trying to keep a band and a crew going. But it might happen. You never can tell. At least Dez was able to get a lot of the people that he wanted involved on the record. I know on one of my side projects, everyone I tried to get involved, I couldn't get anybody, but I got one dude out there that stepped up to the plate.
I love it. I love it. Dave Grohl did it, God bless him. He took the whole gang of us on that Sound City tour. We toured the world and did it. It was incredibly well received. It was a great idea. And the people involved in it and who saw it will never forget it. So let's do it again.
Heck yeah. I think if that would happen, it'd be quite an experience.
And lyrically, it's more real, right? Because honestly, it's hard for me to listen to songs about dragons and shit, you know? I've never seen a dragon.
Some of the country music or outlaw legends are good storytellers, or would be a lot of heartfelt pain or loss they sing about. There is some good time kind of songs out there, but on the outlaw side of it is a lot of the same topics.
In fact, it's darker because some of the metal, the darkness in metal is cartoon darkness. You know, like Satan doesn't exist. I know that. You know that, whoever's watching this. If you have a brain, you know that. If you didn't know that, Satan is not real. I'm sorry to break the news to you, the devil doesn't exist. But like heartache and alcoholism and not having money and just feeling, disliked and unwanted by the entire rest of the world, those are all very real things. There's no disputing that. The little red man with the pitchfork, that's disputable, that's something you can't see, but you can see broken men and women everywhere, and that's what those songs are ultimately about, I think, broken spirits.
So I listen to outlaw country and people are like I said, Whiskey River, take my mind, or if drinking don't kill me, her memory will. It's like, oh man, I wish I would have wrote that. Even some lines out of Ghost Riders in the Sky, it's like, wow, this, unbelievable. I wish I would have wrote those lines. As a lyricist, I look at these guys, some of these outlaw country artists, and just like, they're unbelievable,
And it's a little bit more just open to the point, but I have a tendency to, I don't really pay attention to lyrics a lot, and I've said that in the past. I don't, even when I first heard a lot of Metallica songs, I never really even look to see what they were about or what James was singing about. I didn't care. I cared about the guitar riffs and how the vocals were sung, not what they were about. But with country music, I actually have a tendency to listen to what they're saying and pay attention for some reason.
For me, writing country music or outlaw music is, you know, trying to keep it as real as possible. But then again, I try to keep a rowdy part in place, and then the natural sorrow part in place. Those are some of the ingredients.
I think that there's a lot of commonality in the in old outlaw country, not only lyrics but people that listen to that kind of stuff. I think there's a commonality between that and people that listen to metal. Kind of, working the 9 to 5, working for the weekend kind of mentality that it might seem glamorous in other metal bands, but we're here to work hard and play cool songs. And I think that's what ultimately people are into, and on both sides of the outlaw country and metal spectrum.
Somebody said country music will make you feel a lot better listening to it, or make you feel worse in an awesome way. And that's what some of the best country does to me, because a lot of this stuff is not happy. It's not happy, but you listen to it and it I don't know how to describe the feeling it gives you, It's, I understand, man, God damn it.
So something I think you gotta understand.
I mean, the country and metal sound, yes, sonically completely different, but a lot of times it's the concept of it is a very, very real lyrics, very passionate lyrics, and then, and very using chords that are very much, part of their soul. So that's what metal's all about as well. So it just seemed right.
But I wanted to bring this out to people that are in metal that may not hear may have never heard these songs. Oh, country, I'm not into it. It's like, well, this shit is so real. You need to hear it, and you need to hear it heavy, how I've always heard it. Some incredible guests. We've got Wednesday 13, Brock from 36 Crazy Fist. We got Mark Morton from Lamb of God, Randy from Lamb of God. We got Leaving from Fear, Hank 3. Neil from my band is singing on 2 tracks, and he's incredible. He's got great vocals. We've got a lot of guests.
I was totally into having as many people as we could find to come and guest on the record, and a lot of them ended up being just people that we've toured with in the past, friends of ours, friends of Dez's.
Probably known Dez since the mid-2000s, I'd say. I mean, my band was signed to Roadrunner in 1999. I knew of him, obviously, in the Cold Chamber era. But becoming friends with Dez, I'd say like the mid-2000s when Devildriver and 36 started touring together. I mean, we probably toured together at least, 8 to 10 times over the years.
Since I joined Devildriver, I haven't really had a chance to work with a whole lot of people outside of Devildriver because we've been so busy over the years. And it's nice to see other talents that have a different way of looking at things add their own flavor to the record. And a lot of what I was picturing in my head as Neil and I were rewriting this record, and what I thought just Dez was going to do, because when we were writing the record, or rewriting the record, I didn't know that Dez was going to take it so far and get so many artists to come and guest on the record. So most of what I was picturing was Dez doing a vast majority of the singing on there, where I think maybe there's like 3 songs that don't have a guest on it.
So we got we have a lot of guest vocals that, yeah, initially I wasn't even planning on. You know, we wrote for Dez, and I thought that was going to be it. And even with just Dez's vocals, I think it would be an amazing record. But yeah, the people started, more people are coming on. You know, John Cash Jr. coming on. Wednesday 13 came on, did awesome.
Well, first there were 2 tracks he sent me. It was just the music, no vocals or melody or anything at all. And I recognized the songs. I thought that was cool. And then like a week or 2 later, he's like, "No, we're not doing those songs because I want you to do George Jones' If Drinking Don't Kill Me." And I was like, is somebody playing a trick on me? Am I being punked? Because he had no idea that is my favorite like country song. It's my favorite George Jones song of all time. It's one of my favorite like songs ever. Like I've told people, like if it's just such a dark, just depressing song. And whenever he asked me to do that, I was like, I'm in.
Well, I knew that it could be done. I knew that combination of styles could be done. That you know, it's a conceivability, and I thought that we'd do it in a really interesting way, and we did. And yeah, I think, and it's also, I think it's maybe something that's going to become more and more popular.
I tried pulling from about 3 or 4 different kind of vocal artists in the song that I got to do, which was Country Heroes. But I still haven't heard what they used, but I know with all the songs or all the takes that I sent them, like I said, there's about 3 or 4 different voices happening, or as Dez would say, this is a side of you I haven't heard. So, and that goes back to having fun with the project, you know, trying to mix it up a little bit.
I knew someone was going to do it one day, and I think it's a great idea that you know, that Dez finally had the opportunity to make this happen, because it just seems like a marriage that seems perfect together.
I knew it would work. I didn't know how it would work, but I knew it would work because, you know, the soul of country music is definitely dark enough to work with a metal treatment.
You know, having Burton from Fear Factory was, what he ended up doing was not what I pictured, but I loved it. You know, it came out super cool, and I admit I am a Fear Factory fan. I've been listening to them since whenever they came out on the Spawn soundtrack back in the day. I think that was my first exposure to Fear Factory, and man, I didn't even have my driver's license yet.
Yeah, I was channeling my true self. That's what I was doing.
I think originally when Dez and I spoke about the song, and I started listening, like I said, I didn't know about the song itself, which when I talked to my other friends who are pretty into country, they're like, "What? You don't know Copperhead Road?" And I was like, "No." So my first listens on that song were it was actually the Devildriver version. So then I guess when I went in to record it, my whole thing with it was to see if the speed was that much different. Obviously, the Devildriver version's a lot faster, but is it so fast that the vocals are going to be sped up? And that was my initial, you know, research on it, and it really wasn't. I mean, you could still have the same melody line, timing-wise, as the original. So obviously, theirs is more aggressive and ramped up, but I think we still had the same true to the original vibe as far as the melody went.
But that's such an honor, you know. Great musicians, you know, it's like a history about all those players, like the background, like so many people got influence from those people to do new music.
It's crossing off shit off a bucket list I didn't fucking have because it was unrealistic, you know? This is certainly one of those things, like, really? Like, you share, I got to do a cover song of this legend, and then his son's on this fucking track. Like, wow, you know? That's bad as hell, you know? Just, and you hear all the realness in every one of these guests. It's not like some half-assed thing, like, oh yeah, I'm on your shit. It's like, they're wailing on this shit. Like, they're like psyched to be a part of it, and we're psyched to have them. Obviously, it's an honor.
about freedom of music. Rock and roll, metal, country. It's all about what you love. It's all about, to me, it's all about having an open mind. Places that aren't necessarily the normal places to go, and that's what being a part of the Outlaws Until the End album was to me. And but it's about friendship, it's about kinship, and there are no rules in music as far as I'm concerned. So you can call it rebel, you can call it outlaw, whatever it is, but to me it's just freedom, no rules.
I just kind of, to say it's icing on the cake would be really discounting what they've helped this record become. Like, I feel super fortunate to be involved with it, even more so with the guests.
To be asked is massive, and I'm grateful, and that just is a tribute to my friendship with Dez.
Some of the cats that I was going to have on it that didn't actually make it are now calling me and getting ready to sign up for number 2, because we're definitely going to do a volume 2, because this one's called Volume 1, Outlaws Till the End, Volume 1.
Dez will be a prime mover in getting all this going. You might as well be there to make some more installments on the docket for 2 and 3 more records. Sounds good to me.